Our frame by source 1 is ready for assembly and installation of electronic components. But before we start the soldering process, especially if you are doing it for the first time on a new frame, you need to design the placement, the layout of electronic components and wires. That is, arrange VTX, flight stack, camera, and other components, so that you have an approximate understanding of how you will assemble everything, and in order to ensure that the VTX, capacitor, wires, etc. fit without any issues before you solder anything. Therefore, we first check what we have. We install the flight stack. It is the brain and the heart of our drone. Then we place the speed controllers. Now we have the frame with the camera facing away from me and the rear part facing me. We position the speed controller so that the power contact pads face backward. We arrange and check that nothing is obstructing the standoffs, and we make sure that we have sufficient clearance between the frame plate and the stack. Some manufacturers may install connectors that are quite large, which may interfere with the frame, and as a result, vibrations can be transmitted to the flight stack. In such cases, you need to use plastic nuts on these screws. In our case, everything is okay with our SpeedyB. We have been working with this manufacturer for a long time. He approaches the creation of his flight stacks very skillfully. Let's install the flight controller. On the flight controller, you should see where the arrow is located. The arrow should be at the top and should point in forward direction, which means that you are placing it. That means that you are placing it correctly. That's installed. The biggest problem while installing arises when we need to place a powerful VTX video transmitter in the rear, a large capacitor, and the power wires. In many frames, there may not be enough space for all of that. And then we either have to move the capacitor or find a different way to place video transmitter, and avoid the situation when you solder the power wires, solder the capacitor, and then install video transmitter, and only after that you realize that it doesn't fit. So you will have to start all over. We will now place video transmitter here. On this frame we will have Reaper Extreme installed, but we will also try and see how the Rush Max Solar fits in here. Max Rush Solar is one of the best video transmitters, which uses a completely legal smart audio, meaning it is not a stolen Chinese protocol or anything like that. They strive to make high-quality products that accurately meet the stated specifications. It will be mounted here. Let's see if we have enough space. We see that we have two holes in here where we can attach this video transmitter. And it aligns with these holes, but we have very little space. We have very little space left, therefore we need to solder and make sure that the capacitors and power wires pass over the video transmitter and do not interfere with it. You can see how it will look. It will look like that. In general, I prefer not to screw the video transmitters tightly to the frame, but instead use double-sided foam tape and simply secure it with a plastic tie. In this case, we have additional insulation from the frame, and in the event of a hard crash during training, the video transmitter usually remains intact. It does not break along with the frame. In cases where it doesn't fit along the frame, I place it across the frame. Let's see how Reaper Extreme from Foxier fits into this frame. We can see mounting points here. They align perfectly well with the holes in the frame. We can attach it here with these 4 screws, and we have more wiggle room for the wires. Now about installation of the rush. I remove the flight controller so that the speed controller and the area where we solder can be is more visible. I take out the capacitor. Note that heat shrink tubes are included with the capacitor. I always put them on the capacitor leads. Let's take a look. I will need to solder it so that the capacitor is on top, to have enough clearance between VTX and the top plate. And in this case, obviously, we will have to make the power wires go around it on both sides and come out on the back. In this frame, the camera is installed on a 3D printed mount. Let's install it. When installing the camera, we remember that micro-sized cameras are used in the Source 1 frame. If you have purchased a mini-sized camera, you will have to either reprint the mount, taking the STL file from the documentation of the People's FPV community, Fox FPV community, or work with a drill or file, removing about 1 millimeter from the side here. We take out our micro camera. Foxcat 3 camera is one of the best. It is very light sensitive. There are also versions with a partially cut off infrared filter, which sees very well at night. Let's measure accordingly. When we arrange it like this, we can roughly see where and how we will place it. If you plan to have autonomous buzzer on your drone or some additional board or something like that, you can see that you have enough space here to accommodate all of that. I think we can now proceed with soldering. Thank you.